I'll introduce folks. Gabby, can we go to the next slide? Or Maddie, sorry. Is Maddie on? Okay. Okay. I think most of you know the objective is to talk about the USPS and their offer of additional mail service to Keystone, and their offer really is what they'd like to do is expand through the use of cluster boxes, and I will explain those a little bit, the details, but it would be external to the buildings, and we'll talk about what that means. But it's something that a lot of folks in our earlier meetings that we had as a town said something that's highly desirable. But we also recognize that there's an awful lot of condo homeowners that this is a second home and may not quite be as desirable. So as HOA managers, we need to think about, what do our folks want? What do we want to do? And so we have put together a short agenda, and it's only a few pages, where we'll talk about some of the highlights. But with the note that went out a few days ago, we included a more lengthy document that hopefully explains most of the details. But we will have time for some questions on the back end here. So I've asked Lindsay, who's the Town of Keystone Community Development Director. He'll talk about the Keystone requirements from a town's perspective, and then Michael, who I don't see on yet. I don't know if you're on yet, Michael, who's our USPS postmaster in Dillon, and Michael has also. We'll spend a few minutes on what the post office requires, and then Tim, who we all know has gone through this once before and has some, I think, good tips to share with some of the HOAs, the good and the bad, and things that we had to think about as we go through this. So, Maddie, can you go to the next slide, please? And this is the great thing is that the working with Michael at the post office, he's very willing and very excited about leveraging postal service, enhancing postal service to Keystone. There are a few places that already get it, but just very few. And so they are willing to assist in what they call the setup of the service. But individual HOAs will be responsible for the acquisition and the installation costs of the cluster boxes. And we'll talk about that in a second when we get to what Lindsay's going to discuss. We put in kind of the approximate cost for a 16 box, and that means that would represent 16 units cluster box. And you order those from, there's quite a few USPS folks that have got boxes that are approved that are online. We included a few of those in the attached document. And then on top of that, you would need a concrete base to put that on, to get that installed. And so these are the kind of the approximate numbers. It could be plus or minus 10, 20%, but these are the approximate numbers. You can also get boxes like 8 or multiple boxes of 16. We'll talk about the probably the biggest challenge or thing that we will want to talk about is location, because location of a cluster box is going to be critical, because if it's on a street, you need typically to worry about safety, snow removal, and where they're going to place snow, and potential drive-off area. Whereas we're looking, for example, in the Alders, putting that on some HOA property right by the trash building, which wouldn't really require any additional costs beyond what we talk about here. So the one little small thing is that HOAs that are that are part of KNC that leverage the design review board will probably also need to get approval and take a look at your location, where it is, et cetera. So if the HOA is part of that of the KNC, that's an additional step that is outlined in the attached document.
Dan,
And then,
Dan,
yeah,
just one
sure,
quick correction.
sure, Tim.
It's not members of KNC. It's anybody who's in the Keystone PUD. So
Okay,
anybody who's in the Keystone PUD is governed by the review board, which happens to be run by KNC. So it's not
right,
being a KNC member. It's just in the Keystone PUD.
right. And thanks for the explanation. Yeah, need to explain that. That's correct. Um, and then lastly, each HOA will want to then determine how many individual boxes they require. And I've asked Tim to join us at the back end of this to talk about his experience and what he's seen. So let's go to the next one. I'm going to turn it over to Lindsay, who's the Town of Keystone's Community Development Director. So Lindsay?
I guess I'm up. So I always like doing these things on the regulatory side of this, which I'm going to start with. Trust me, I work for the government, and I will endeavor to make this as simple as I possibly can. For good or for bad, when the town became a town, it brought over some of county's land use and development code. And there's a portion of the land use and development code that we adopted until we come up with our own regulations. With that being said, in the past, it had been administered by the county engineering department. We are the town now, and I have taken over that responsibility of making sure that these are going to be in a location, along with the public works director for the town, in a location that is safe. And that's my number one priority, is the safety of what these things might or could do in a negative manner. For instance, block emergency access, albeit for 5 minutes or less. But I do want to look at that. The location will also be looked at from a site distance triangle perspective, make sure that we're not blocking important visual from a vehicular standpoint, an intersection, for instance. Quite frankly, what I've done is, I believe all of you have seen the checklist, if you will, of the procedures. I have gone about as far as I feel comfortable with, making it discretionary from my office, from my perspective. And I built in some checks as far as allowing staff to review it. Now, one of my biggest, I'm not going to say fears, is there is a portion of it that sort of protects the HOA as well with regards to the placement. It would be advisable and necessary, quite frankly, to get an adjacent property owner's not necessarily permission, but acknowledgement of the location of these. We don't want to create a problem from a visual impact or anything else. So I'm putting that part on the HOAs to make sure that the HOA feels comfortable on the location and the adjacent property owner, if there is one. Sometimes there won't be. For instance, the sanctuary, I believe, doesn't necessarily have a directly adjacent homeowner. The enclave doesn't. So in those cases, it was a non-issue. Now, with that being said, we have looked at the estates of the alders, and that has become a little bit more tricky with regards to a location that won't necessarily have an adverse impact on an adjacent neighbor. So again, I have softened up the regulations in order to, as far as I feel comfortable doing without an actual code amendment. But I think we can certainly get quite a few. I think a majority of the locations that the HOA agrees upon as far as a location will very, very likely work. And I can facilitate that. So for those of you that have read the procedures, does anyone have any questions with regards to that?
Well, we can
Dan?
certainly, yeah, go ahead.
Is there anything I missed that you want me to hit?
No, and I think that's it. I would say that the only thing I think the clarification that was brought up earlier by Tim about the KNC, it's not the KNC, but it's the PUD that has the DRB project.
Yeah,
So just to be
and
sensitive to that.
to be honest with you, my experience with that group has been nothing but positive with regards to being open-minded with these locations. Again, they have a vested interest in it as well. They don't want them in a location that inhibits snow removal. Neither do you. Neither does the HOA. They also don't want it in a location that'll block access or emergency egress. So I think everyone's really on the same page. I think the larger hurdle, quite frankly, will be to make sure that you're not impacting one of the residents in your HOA. I think that will prove it'll take some coordination, I believe. But again, the regs of the town, I don't believe, well, they're not intended to hinder this by any means. And I will do everything in my power to facilitate these approvals.
Yeah. Lindsay, I do
Yes.
have a question. I tried to ask it earlier and unfortunately it was on mute. On the adjacent property owner of approvals, we have a majority of the HOAs in Keystone are multifamily HOAs. They're not
Yes.
not townhomes per se. They're actual real condos. If they're going to put it like ours, we would put it on our own private property.
Yep.
And it probably would not even be in view of any of the adjacent properties. Do we have to go get letters from those adjacent property owners to say it's okay?
No, in that case, I will accept a letter from the HOA president indicating that it is all right with the HOA.
Yeah, well, yeah, the HOA is sponsoring this.
Yeah. So the answer is yes. I will.
So does that mean we would have to go to the adjacent HOA presidents to get their saying it's okay, even though they can't see it?
No, just the HOA in which it is, just the subdivision which it's serving.
All right.
Yeah.
That's reasonable.
That's what I'm going for.
Okay, any other questions of Lindsay? Of course, we have some time afterwards. Otherwise, Maddie, why don't you go to the next one? Is Michael on? Michael was, I think there were some challenges at the post office today. It was, it's one of the.
Imagine that.
Well, it's actually, I will let you know what I know. It's one of the things that is driving this is that the budget for the USPS that comes for delivery is a different budget that's in mailboxes and some of the other things that are physically in the unit and in the post office. So there's a real drive for him to encourage us to have this kind of delivery. So I don't think, Michael, are you on right now?
I don't see him.
I don't either. Well, let me go through these points that he pointed out, and there's more in, again, the attached document. But after you've talked to Lindsay and you got kind of a location identified, the next thing to do would be to talk to Michael at the USPS, and he's willing and anxious to stop by and take a look at it and just put their check mark on it. Yeah, this makes some sense. He's looking at access for his delivery guys. He's looking at safety, some of the same things. So most likely, if Lindsay's got that approval done, his would too. Now, what the post office does do is that once it is installed, they'll do the numbering and the setup of the individual boxes, the labeling, etc. And again, that's just scheduled through them. There are, and I was hoping he was going to be on because I know that there's a group that physically will also install it on the. Is there somebody trying to ask a question? There's a hand up. Is there a hand up there? If you have a question, real quick, Cindy.
Yeah, I posted it as well. It was on the last question.
Okay.
So we've identified a location that's entirely on our property. So I'm with Snowdance, and
Okay.
so similar to what Ken said. So the question is, do we need a licensed land surveyor involved? And I'm assuming not.
It's a great question. I'm sorry, Cindy. Is it Cindy?
Yes.
Yes.
Cindy, that's a really great question. Again, I'm endeavoring to make this as simple as possible. Now, with that being said, I do need to know its location. Is it on HOA property or is it hypothetically in the town right away?
Yeah.
I mean, both are possible, but I need to know it.
It would be entirely on our property, and much like what Ken said, it wouldn't. I guess it would be somewhat visible, but it's entirely on our property.
And when you say our property, you mean common area?
Common area, yes, it's Snowdance.
Okay. I think I'd like to go out there and take a quick look. If there are any stakes or anything physical that I could take a look at to make sure that it is indeed not in town right away or something else, then I would not require the survey.
Lindsay,
Okay.
let me give you an example. In our case, we'd be 100 feet away from the nearest town road.
Not a problem.
Yeah. Same here. Okay, and so our parking lot is alongside this area.
Yeah.
So the second question is, would we need to have a space open for the postman to park when they're delivering the mail?
Cindy,
Yes.
that's another great question. I believe that some very simple signage can remedy that issue. Nothing big, but in a logical location that says 5-minute or mail pickup, mail delivery only, not permanent parking, I think would be fine with regards to that. You do not need to create a new parking spot necessarily for the mail truck or for people picking up their mail.
Okay, thanks.
But Lindsay, again, recognizing the large HOAs that are actually condo complexes.
Yep.
People who are going to be picking up their mail aren't driving to pick it up. They're actually walking to pick it up.
Exactly.
So the real
I'm not
question
really concerned. Now, that is true. Maybe the Pines is a good example of that.
Yep, it's a prime example.
I do know when Lindsay came out to visit with the Alders that he was very accommodating to what we needed in the Alders. And I think that's one of the nice things about a small community town. As long as we're providing safety, we don't want to have a lot of impediments.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I just don't want to, again, for the sake of being redundant, cause an issue that would, number one, jeopardize health, safety, welfare, and two, I don't want an improvement unknowingly in town right away.
Right.
And it's really honestly that simple. Now, again, I think the challenge is making sure that the people that potentially would be impacted are on board.
Good. Okay.
Yeah, but
Thanks.
and Lindsay, by definition, if you have an HOA board that has approved this, the whole condo association is on board whether an individual owner disagrees or not.
That is very true. And that's where I'm taking the liability off myself.
Yep. The board has, an HOA board would have to be the one that is pushing this through their HOA president or through the property manager.
Correct. That's correct. Okay. Well, thanks, Lindsay.
Sure.
I had one other comment about from Michael's perspective at the post office is that once one of these is set up, each individual that does want a box, they probably have one in Dillon already, needs to go to the Dillon post office and notify them. There's actually a form that they will give that you just say, okay, I want my mail delivered here. And so they will facilitate that. So that's really kind of the only thing that the individual person needs to go. Now, the next page, we'll just zip over there if we can, Maddie, I'm going to ask Tim. Tim's gone through this, had some very good, I thought, organizational management thoughts and processes that HOA should consider once they start to think about this in how many boxes should we get, how should we manage this process, et cetera. So Tim, do you want to take in some thoughts?
Sure. First, I'll cover the number of boxes. So I know the initial thought people have is, well, we don't have that many full-time residents, and how many full-time residents do we have? But what we found is that almost every owner will want a box, even if they're only here part-time, if they're here several times a year. We at the sanctuary, we have, people that sometimes come for the summer. And the reason that they end up wanting a box is primarily, as you probably all can guess, is packages. Because if they are here for 1 or 2 weeks, they want to order something from Amazon and they want to get it delivered. And, for most packages in the mountains that come from Amazon end up routing through the U.S. Post Office. And if you don't have mail delivery, it's very difficult to get it. So what we have found is that the only people, we have 30 units in the sanctuary, and I think all but 4 of them have mailboxes. And we found the only ones that really don't care about having a mailbox are people who are really absentee owners, and it's just a rental unit and they rent it, and they maybe are here once a year for a week or something, and that's it. So they don't really care. But everybody else ended up getting a box. So my suggestion is that you get a box for every owner, unless you're one of the very large HOAs like the Pines and Silvermere, where you're talking 140, 150, then you might want to think twice about it. But if you have like 24 units or 40 units, my recommendation is that you get a box for every unit.
Hey, sweetie, can I call you back in a few minutes?
Because even
on a meeting right now online, and I'll call you right back. Thanks. Bye.
Even people who say, may not think that they want a box, they end up wanting a box. And if you don't get a box for every unit, then as ownership changes on a unit, you're going to have to be relabeling boxes and changing the address in a box. The other thing, and Michael's not on, so he probably would disagree with this. What we found, even though you're supposed to go to the mail at the post office and sign up for delivery, as Dan mentioned. What I have found with the delivery, people have told me, is that when they sort the mail, for instance, anything on Caravel Drive, they just throw it in this bin and they deliver it. Whether they don't usually even, depending upon who's sorting, don't even check to see if that person has signed up for delivery or not. So my suggestion is that you get a box for every unit. It's just easier to do that from the get-go. It actually is a selling point for the units. It's a very probably if everybody gets mail delivery, it won't be so much as it is now. But for us, we've had people that are potential buyers and they see the mailbox and they say, that's the selling point. Like, that's it. We're coming here if they get mail delivery here. So that's my tips in terms of the number of boxes. And if you have, and then some of the things when you number them, say like we have two sets of 32 or two sets of 16. So when you order the boxes, you can say how do you want them numbered. So we said one box number 1 to 16 and the other cluster box number 17 to 32. And that way you have unique numbers. But one of the things you have to do is assign numbers to units, because the numbers that you will get to put on the boxes are not going to be necessarily your address. So most units in Keystone, if you're in the condo building, have a 4-digit unit number. So and these boxes will have like 1 or 2 digits. At the sanctuary, every unit has a unit number in addition to their street address, and so numbered 1 to 30. So that's what we use, but you'd have to come up with some scheme to relate a box number to, because on the outside will be the box number. The actual unit address only goes on the inside of the box. When the delivery people come, they open the big door. They don't open it one box at a time. They open the whole door and the whole thing opens up. So some of my tips, that's one of the things you need to educate owners. I kind of made the assumption when we did it that all owners understood how cluster boxes work. A lot of people don't. They've always lived in a home and they've had a street address, and they don't realize that. So I used to get all these calls, well, the address isn't on the box, or they think when they address the mail that they have to put the street address and the box number. And I'm like, no, you don't have to put the box number on. The delivery people, they don't even look at the box numbers. They open up the door, and inside each box is where the street address is listed. And so I did find that we needed to educate owners as to how cluster boxes work in the street address versus the box number. Another thing is you have to have a process for managing the keys. So, who's going to do? I do this for the sanctuary. Maybe your property management company is going to do that, but somebody has to, number one, hand out the keys, and then manage. When ownership changes, how do you retrieve those keys? So the boxes that we get, and I think pretty much these are all the same, there's different vendors. We get 3 keys with the box. We keep 1 key as the backup key. So I have 1 key for every box. We let owners, we have a slip that they sign out. They can sign up for one or 2 keys. Some owners want 1 key for both spouses, and some owners just want 1 that they keep in the condo. But we have them sign out for that key, and then when that unit sells, we have to retrieve that key in order to have the next owner sign that out. So you have to have a process to manage those keys. And the reason we keep 1 key for every box is because inevitably, and this has happened I think twice now for us, the owners lose their keys. Then you still have that 1 key that you can use to go get duplicates made. Also important when you get all the keys is that you make a listing of the key number for each box. There's a number, and I think I said like 6 digits or 4 digits or 6 digits on the key, because if you need to get new keys, you don't want to have to rekey the box. You can go to the company and say, send me another key for this number. And if you don't have that list, you won't be able to do that. One of the things that happens is that renter, and this is why sometimes even everybody likes to have a mailbox, even if you rent your condo. This happens several times a year where renters are here for a week and they think, oh, if I order something from Amazon, it's going to be here tomorrow. Sometimes they don't realize in the mountains it takes 2 days, but they usually get a delivery date. And they think it's going to show up at their door. Well, they go and they check with Amazon the next day and it says it's been delivered and it's in a parcel locker. And they're like, where's my package? It's not on my door. So they will call the rental management company or they'll call the owner and they say, well, where's this package? And it's sitting in the mailbox for that unit, but they don't have a key because the owners don't leave the mailbox key sitting there. So that's one of my fun things. I get to go use that spare key that we have for every box and go retrieve the package and get to them. I don't know who would do that in each of your cases, but I'm just warning you that that happens several times a year where renters order something and don't realize it's not going to show up on their doorstep. It's going to end up in a mailbox somewhere, either in the box, if it fits in the box, or in the parcel locker, which all of the things have. So those are just some of the things, as you do have to have a way to manage the keys, and make sure that you keep a spare key for every box, because there's going to be times where you have to get in there for various reasons. Any questions?
Oops, Ken, you're talking, but you're on mute.
I muted myself again. How do you handle the case of where your parcel boxes all get full because an owner or whoever was ordered something and it didn't arrive before they left, and now it's sitting in a parcel box, but now, and you have multiple of those, and now you don't have a parcel box for every box.
So, well, a couple things. So first of all, I don't know in our case, if the parcel boxes are full because all of our addresses are within so many feet, and it goes a pretty long ways within the cluster box, they then deliver it directly to our door. That probably wouldn't be true for condo buildings because they wouldn't have access to the building. In a case like yours, Ken, whether they would do that or not, I'm not sure. My guess is they could, because you all have outside entrances, right? So since you have an outside entrance, they would deliver to the door. Now, what happened, and another reason why that extra key comes in handy, sometimes owners they order something and they think it's going to get here before they leave, or it doesn't, or it gets here before they get here, and they will say, I have this package in my parcel box, can you go get it for me? So I think it's only happened in the last 4 years. It's probably only happened 2 times where I've gone, because the parcel boxes are all full, and I will go and with the owner's permission, get that package and either deliver it to their unit, or they say, we'll keep it and I'll pick it up from you when I get there. But it doesn't happen very often. The more likely thing that happens sometimes is the mailbox itself will get filled with junk mail. And usually, maybe once every couple of months, I meet with the delivery person out there, and we kind of go through and empty all the junk mail out of the boxes for, where the owners aren't here very often, because they'll just open it up, and then I'll go through it with her, and I'll just throw all the junk mail in a bin, and she gets rid of it. But we thought that was going to be a big problem, but that really. It really isn't that much of a problem. Now, if you don't have, if they don't deliver packages to your door because the parcel lockers are full, they will put a notice in your box that you can pick up the package at the post office.
Sure. Okay, Cindy, you have a question? You have your hand up?
Yeah, so it's Snowdance. We have 40 units. Right now, we're thinking not everybody would want a box, and we're not even sure that we can afford it right now. But can we designate, so if we have a box for the few full-time year-round residents, can we designate one of our boxes for general mail for any mail address to our HOA address? And we have a full-time on-site manager, and we're wondering, can we have a box that's designated for him or for our address, and then he would be able to check that and deliver it to units?
Well, I mean, I think I don't think Michael is on, but I think you could have a box that has a address that is, say the address of Snowdance, which isn't a particular unit. You could do that, but I don't think you could say, well, anything that comes to Snowdance other than these 4, put in this box. I don't think they would do that. But you could say, if people want to send something to a snow dance address, which is a general address for the whole complex. You could have a box with that. That I think they would do.
Okay. 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 The other thing is that kind of two other questions. They're kind of related. How often could we change the assignment of boxes? Is there, I guess, a restriction on how often? And this is the situation we're thinking of, is we have some people who come for seasons. And so maybe we have someone who comes for a winter season and they want one of the boxes, but they're not here the rest of the year. And so somebody else might want to use it.
Yeah,
and then we have multiple people assigned to the same box. So let's say my neighbor and I agree that we want one box, and we're willing to share it, that we trust each other. And
yeah, that would be a question for Michael, but let me kind of explain how the process works and why that could be problematic. So when they see right now, each of your units does have a street address. If it's a condo building, it would be the street address of that building, unit number, such and such. But those are not what they call a registered U.S. mailing address. So sometimes if you order something from Amazon, for instance, it'll say that's not even for in the sanctuary where we have regular street addresses, those were not. So once you go and sign up to get mail delivery, that address goes into the U.S. postal system as a deliverable address. So I'm sure they don't want you taking that in and out. I mean, once it's in, that becomes a deliverable address. And then what they do is when something gets to that address, they can look that up and they say, oh, that is a deliverable mail address. If it's not, then it gets returned to the sender. And so I don't think that they would want you registering and deregistering mailing addresses, because that would get rather confusing. So that would be up to Michael, but my guess is that they're not going to want to do that. And that's why I went back to my original recommendation. The easier way, I know it's a little bit more expensive up front, is just to get a mailbox for every unit, unless, if you're talking 100-some units like the Pines and Silver Mill, that may not be practical. But 40, and I don't know if any of these people have PO boxes, but what we found is that several people are paying for PO boxes, well, they used to have them in the UPS store in Silverthorne, or they may be paying at the post office if they don't have a free one. So paying a one-time fee to get a mailbox we actually had an owner who paid for the whole thing. He wanted mail delivery so bad, he said, I'll pay for the whole thing. I'll buy the cluster box for the sanctuary.
Okay. So this kind of brings up one of the things that you just mentioned, and maybe because Michael's not on here and I was hoping he was, one of our bigger problems, at least for me, is we have 3 buildings in our complex. I would assume this is kind of the case for others as well. We have one official address. So my unit is not in the official address of the HOA. And so sometimes I get mail and sometimes I don't. And I'm not just talking USPS, because we do have a box, it's up on Highway 6.
Yeah.
But a lot of times it's that this address can't be found. And it's because it's an official post office.
That's
address.
That's because it's not an official post office address. But once you do this, it will get registered as a post office address.
So even if we don't do a cluster box, can we, now that we have this avenue, at least have an official address for all of our buildings?
You mean each building have its own address?
We do have our own addresses. It's just not recognized by the Postal Service, by FedEx, it's kind of like whether or not the delivery person knows the area, then they know, oh yeah, building B is, this address, even though that's not the official address.
I think
It sounds like this, I don't want to take up time that you
Yeah.
can't answer. It sounds like it's a Michael question
Yeah.
and I can reach out to him.
Yeah, because I mean, every building does have a physical. I mean, all you have to do is look on your any of your documents. It's going to have a physical address. Now, whether there's one address for the three buildings or each building, in most cases, the buildings, even like the Pine, I mean, all the ones that have multiple buildings, like the Pines, they each have a unique street address. The Pines has 9 buildings. Every one of them has a unique street address.
Yeah,
They're not.
and
They're
we do, just that it's
but-
not recognized as all
but
I'm
it's not
saying.
recognized because they're not registered with the post office. But they can be registered with the post office. That's what this process does.
Okay. Whether we have a cluster box or not.
Well, I think in order to register it with the post office, you have to have a place for them to deliver mail. Otherwise, they won't register it because they're going to assume when they register it, they assume there's a place to deliver mail. So if you don't have a cluster box, they're not going to let you put an address in the system.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah.
Lynn, I think you had a question earlier.
No, not now.
Okay.
It,
Good.
it's been answered. Thank you.
Sure,
You all
sure.
answered it.
Okay. Well, I guess I don't want to take too much time because we only wanted to make a brief one, but we, in the attached document that we sent along with the invitations, you do have the contact information for the Keystone and for Michael. Disappointed Michael couldn't join, but I know he's very willing to help when he's not manning the front desk. But I was thinking, just to give you an example, in the Alders, we're going through this process right now. And the way they did it, their board met, discussed this, looked at the pricing. They went online and got detailed pricing. They then went and sent a real short survey to everybody in the HOA. I don't know the outcome of that, but I know that they decided that they're going to continue. I don't know. That was really more to or less to determine how many boxes they wanted. And then the next thing they did was they contacted Lindsay, and Lindsay came out and reviewed the location. They then in turn talked to a neighbor, and we moved that location a bit. And then Michael was the next step, and then ordering, and now they're, I believe the next step is that they're trying to get a contractor to put in their base for the units. So just to give you a sense of what the Alders is going through right now. So, but in the meantime, if you have questions, some of these might have to go to Michael, but you have the contacts, or certainly Lindsay, and take a look at the document that was created. Hopefully it'll help, but it's pretty exciting. I think that the post office has decided that, yeah, it makes some sense to get more delivery for Keystone. It certainly was one of the things that a lot of the people wanted when we became a new town. So hopefully we're going to be able to deliver on this. Any other questions?
Yeah, Dan, I just
Go
want to
ahead.
just reinforce one more time. Even if you do survey, and I do think it's a good survey, you will find that there will people who say that they don't want a box, but once they figure out that means if they have a box that they could get packages delivered, even if they're only here 2 weeks out of the year, you will find that most people will want a box. They might even answer the survey, no, I don't really need one. So I'm just a warning that if you go off of the survey, you may find yourself not having enough boxes when people start saying, well, yeah, I'd really like a box because even though I'm only here for 3 weeks out of the year, I can order a package from Amazon and I'll actually be able to get it. That's what we found happened. That's why out of 30 people, we only have 4 people who live in the sanctuary full time, but out of 30, there's 26 out of the 30 have mailboxes.
Craig, you have a question?
Yeah, just is there going to be a zip code change for the town of Keystone?
That's another process that we're working through. And again, I wish we could do it ourselves, but we are pursuing that. We have high hopes, but with all the things going on at the USPS right now, they're not as responsive as we'd like them to be. So we through working with Ken and directly with some of our congressional folks in Washington, we are now actually on a bill, a named town, which is going to request the USPS to get us our own zip code. Now, whether USPS agrees to that, just because Congress says that that's what they want, we don't know. So because there is some autonomy with the USPS. So, but that's really unrelated to this cluster box process, but we are pushing that from the town.
Okay, thanks. Yeah, my only reason is for asking is, you know what, if you change zip code, then you got a lot of addresses to change. And then for some of us who have a box someplace else, if we get a cluster box, then we, got to change it to our physical address, which is I would love to do. And I was just hoping the timing to be such that, it could all happen at one time, but doesn't sound like.
Would be nice, but not likely.
Yep, that's what I'm gathering.
Okay.
Thank you.
Any other questions for today? Okay. Like we said, that we will post this up on the town website. Yeah, if you have more questions, use an email for the town or call us. And then Michael has offered to assist as well as appropriate. So.
And Dan, if you send me the link, I will post this out on the, I will send it out to the HOA board members so that they can listen to it too.
Oh, good idea. Okay, great. Well, everybody, thank you very much. And let's keep plugging. Appreciate the attendance.
Thank you very much. This is great.